We are, yes.
All right, with that, I will call over session to order. We had a few technical difficulties. We'll start in just a couple of minutes late here. Up first, the city manager's report. Mr. Mareck.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Couple updates for you. So we met with SM Henches last week, the engineering and public services team. They're anticipating to start work a week from today, Monday, April 28th. The team is working out on sending some handouts to adjacent property owners, and then we'll be doing some social media. We are planning for a 1-month closure to do the street surfacing, sidewalks, curb, and gutter railing. We're hoping for a quicker outcome than 1 month, but with weather and this time of year, we wanted to under-promise and over-deliver. So that project is starting. Creekside Park construction is anticipated to begin mid-May. One of the things that we're trying to, sort through is one of the other projects we're working on is the southwest extension of utilities, and kind of focusing on a council directive of not going back and disrupting infrastructure. We realize that kind of the head end of that utilities project starts in Creekside Park. And so in thinking that through, we realize that if we kind of button up Creekside Park and pave the driveway entrance and do the grading, that possibly within a year's time, we could be digging up that whole park to install this major water and sewer line. And so conversations with Aaron Schmidt, the city engineer, and Andrew Simmons, the director of public services and engineering, they're investigating what I'd call a pre-project that would basically extend that pipe through the park this summer, and then not be in a position then when we move forward with the project to dig up the park, close down the park. Not saying that you're committed to doing that, but we at least want to investigate that and the cost to avoid an interruption in services or access to the park potentially next summer. So more to come on that. If you notice in the monthly report, the Carver Station bus service, that grant that we initially was federalized and is now a state grant, we're anticipating that there's probably less than a year worth of grant proceeds to continue funding that. So that's setting us up for a conversation on the future of transportation. There's likely not a path to continue bus service under our kind of current funding. We're not a part of the transit taxing district. Even if you are a member of the transit taxing district, that doesn't necessarily guarantee you bus service. So in any event, Aaron Smith is going to be working on setting up some partners, the Met Council to talk about the transit taxing district, Eric Hansen with Southwest Transit, just to kind of give the city council a full perspective on what's available to the city and the community as far as mass transportation, how that intersects with the Prime service. But in any event, a kind of a closure to about 10 plus years of transit service when Carver Station opened in 2015. And we're also kind of trying to sort through how does that grant end, meaning, at least from my perspective, we don't want to be in a position where it ends on a kind of a random date and who knows who gets the last ride. I think there's some support for maybe ending it at the end of the year. Or you could say, well, we're going to do it, but then we're going to pay for that additional bus service. There are some kind of caveats within there where Southwest is only charging us the distance from East Creek to Carver Station, and if those grant proceeds end, I would say that deal is probably going to sunset with the grant agreement. So there's just a lot of little wrinkles within this context. So I just wanted to kind of tee you up for a future conversation on transportation. Then a reminder that the listening session for the Public Services Space Needs is at your June 2nd meeting. We'll have this as an agenda item, but there'll be an opportunity for the council to talk about that this evening. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, the Southwest Utilities Extension Project. We're moving forward with Summerfield on a trunk fee agreement, meaning that they would prepay their first phase trunk fees to give us essentially cash or a means to finance some of the preliminary work and probably, I would say maybe a first couple of years of debt service on that project. We're estimating in the neighborhood of about $800,000 in trunk fees that would come from phase one. So that would kind of, and the council's talked about this in different forums, gives you an opportunity to kind of have something both in writing and then financial backing that shows their commitment to moving forward with this, and then perhaps gives you or the council the ability to move forward with the bigger project. So we're hoping to kind of turn that around and bring that to your May 5th meeting to meet some of the timelines that are being requested and give Bolton and make enough time to prepare plans and specs. We at least wanted to try to hit that May 5th meeting. Commerce Drive extension, so if you can think of off of Levi Griffin Road, just before Lakeview Industries, Commerce Drive heads north. The school district owns about 20 acres just to the north of that, and then there's another 60 from that former Joe Wickenhauser farm. Both of the parties, the school district and the folks that are representing the Wickenhauser family, are interested in pursuing at least the possibility or requesting to the council that the extension be done as a special assessment project. So the city would pay for and construct the project, and then the cost would be specially assessed back to the district and the Wickenhauser family or that prospective buyer. So they haven't committed to that. We're just pursuing the conversation to see if it makes sense for them. But as you can probably imagine, selling a property, especially an industrial property that has street, curb, and gutter available to it, certainly gives you a leg up on trying to secure an industrial user, as opposed to saying, here we have this 60-acre piece, and we still have to figure out public access, utilities, and the timing that goes along with that. So more to come on that. And then a big piece that the council's been talking about for quite some time, the Planning Commission met at their meeting on Thursday to discuss the kind of the final draft of the sign ordinance. So that'll be coming back to you on the 5th. So that's my update. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
So I have a question about the future of the Carver Southwest Transit Agreement. I know that Aaron is going to have that discussion. Is there an opportunity for us as a council to be included in a conversation with Aaron and Eric Hansen and talk about those options? There's a lot going on in Southwest Transit too. The separation of Southwest Transit from Met Council and to receive funding through sales tax dollars.
Yeah, that's I probably didn't clearly articulate. She's going to facilitate Eric coming to a council work session. So our preliminary design for that conversation is to first invite the Met Council representative out to talk about transit kind of by region and the transit taxing district, how that works. And again, we're not proposing that. We just want to give you line of sight to how that functions. Invite Eric Hansen to that, and then have a companion work session at the next meeting or the next month, and then have Eric there as kind of a subject matter expert to talk about that, and then how that kind of integrates with their service providing. So it'd be a conversation facilitated for the council to have.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Comments? No questions. All right. Okay, up next, council requests. Are there any?
None from me.
Okay. Up next, we have the Sheriff's Office report with Deputy Nelson. Come on up. Yeah. Again, this is generally meant to be so much more casual.
That's okay. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tyler Nelson. I'm a deputy with the Carver County Sheriff's Office. I've been working here since June of last year, but I've been a peace officer since 2017. Prior experience, I did work for the city of Winstead, so Brent and I have a connection there. Paths didn't cross, but
I wasn't there.
Yep. He was long gone on to this wonderful city here. So, and then I also worked for the Wright County Sheriff's Office, and Brent and I have had a lot of discussions about my experience with contract communities and some of the needs and sort of special considerations that we have. Wright County runs a very similar model. It's a lot of no police departments, deputies are assigned to cities. Currently, I serve as the liaison corporal for the community of Carver in the city of Victoria. I took over that position from Deputy West, if any of you had the opportunity to meet him. Commander Woolley approached me with that opportunity, and I was excited to take it. But as far as some of the work goals I have here, I do enjoy working with the smaller communities. I like that face-to-face interaction, and I like having that opportunity to work very closely with community members, leaders, council, mayor, and so forth on relevant issues and problems that do kind of come up. A little about me, I'm married to another police officer. Has its own challenges. We have 2 young children and a couple of dogs, and you know, it's keeping us busy. So as far as you know, an update in regards to the month of March report, nothing jumps out at me as uncharacteristic or abnormally high in any respects. I do think that some of our traffic numbers are on the lower side. I would like to see those numbers improved. I think we could do a better effort of some more patrol, especially in the downtown area. I know that's something we had talked about in the work plan for our contract. So trying to motivate my other team members and kind of get us to focus in on some areas here. As far
Say, just so that we know, when you say traffic, that means pulling people over for.
Correct, yeah, just general traffic enforcement, whether it be, you know, something that we were specifically keyed into, or if we're just trying to be proactive and stopping what we see.
Right.
There's, you know, we've gotten various complaints, you know, within the last few months about specific areas, and we try and, you know, give that a bit of more attention at the time. But then obviously we move on to another area as we can, but as far as some other things that I wanted to talk about with this being our first meeting, we currently have 4 of us assigned to the contract. We're still hoping to fill the other 2 spots. I'm hopeful those should be filled sometime, you know, summer, fall this year. That depends on how their training goes. We have a number of trainees in training right now, and you might have an opportunity to see and meet them out and about, depending on where calls take them. But Commander Woolley and Lieutenant Brunig are more than happy to talk about some of the staffing needs too of the contract. I'm hoping to increase some communication and involvement with our other deputies. The night guys can be hard to get a hold of. They tend to be a little bit more keep to themselves, but I would like for them to have open lines of communication with you guys as well. As far as community events, like I said, I truly enjoy being involved in some stuff like that. So I know we have some larger events like Steamboat Days, if I'm correct. I've never attended, so this would be my first year
You're in for a treat.
being around for that, so I'm excited. That should be fun. But as far, yeah, so keying us in on those sooner rather than later. Even if it's a minor event, that kind of spur of the moment, maybe somebody plans something and it happens, you know, let me or Brent know, and we can start that organization to get, you know, either resources that might be needed, or if it's just a simple stop, show up, greet, talk, and sort of be present in the city. And that goes for, you know, if community members wanted to organize any sort of, you know, public talks, things like that, you know, we're more than happy to organize, you know, scam awareness, or maybe bring up we're finding e-bikes are turning into somewhat of an issue in some of our communities. It's kind of catching up with current laws and ordinances, and we're finding that a lot of cities don't really have anything in place other than, you know, general state law prohibits certain ages, but we might have some difficulties with speed on local trails and things like that. Other things like theft protection, you know, lights on programs, close your doors, garage door open programs, things like that. Stuff we'd also like to explore and let people know about. But
Do you notify residents now if you see a garage door open at night?
me personally, I haven't worked a night shift in town yet, but I would say that the deputies probably aren't doing that currently. I know of some other communities that have that program. My wife actually works for a department who's very big on that, and it seems to have quite a bit of success as far as positive reception with the homeowners. You know, usually it's just a forgetful thing, right? But most of our more serious thefts that we end up seeing, even in communities out here, and it's crime of opportunity. They're not necessarily going to go after you if you're present or around the area, but if you leave an unlocked car in your garage, easy target, right? So that's something that definitely could be organized and talked about, and I'd be happy to spearhead that project. But
That had, years and years ago, I had that knock on my door.
yeah,
And it did leave a positive impression,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's a good way to connect with community members pretty much at random too. So it's hey, this is who I am. I actually am patrolling the street, just so you know. But I did want to mention theft calls. We really don't get much in the way of theft or shoplifting at our businesses in this downtown area. We've pretty much had it all centered around Fleet Farm, but they've been very good with working with us. Their loss prevention employees and staff are excellent to work with. So we've been pretty quick about apprehending or prosecuting or charging any suspects there. But as far as anything else, I really don't have any other planned talking points, but I'm more than open to any question or further discussion on anything, so.
All right, what do you guys have for Deputy Nelson?
Did you prep him for 2 truths and a lie?
Oh, did anybody tell you about that?
Oh, goodness.
I'm off my game, so maybe not to, oh, Andrew's. This is really putting you in the hot seat.
Okay.
And it's also a test. Instead of when we get to meet somebody new, instead of having them say, sometimes it's awkward and they don't know what to say, and we're looking to go a little bit deeper than I've got 2 fish and a dog, kind of thing. Although you did a great job and it's good to hear about that kind of thing. We played 2 truths and a lie. And it started during COVID when it was something that was really easy to do when we were all in this virtual world and nobody was meeting here with me. So if you're so inclined, otherwise we can do it later. I certainly have questions, but.
I'm trying to think of a good 3 things to say here. 2 truths and a lie.
I feel like this isn't on me for putting them on the spot.
That's all right, we can get to real questions.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'll
So,
prepare some
just like
things for later.
questions and feedback, I love hearing that you're saying that you're working and really focusing on traffic. We will, think shortly, I think we're all probably anticipating hearing from residents who have that one car that keeps speeding through their neighborhood, which they tell us about instead of calling you for whatever reason. But I think it's good to help with visibility, and just to enforce folks from going too fast on our roads. I also loved what you're saying about theft. I know that accidents happen, but it boggles my mind how people still leave their cars unlocked with the keys on the dash on the street at night, even though there's the perception of you're in Carver and it's safe. And it just takes a couple of those to figure out that that's not as safe as it is. So love hearing all of that. I think that's great. Also like the relationship work that you're doing. It seems like you're no stranger among here, and that's great. We love seeing you in here, and that's probably your best line of sight to figuring out when the bike rodeo is, when Steamboat Days will be, when we're anticipating that there's going to be the motorcycle rally, so those kinds of things. And thank you for all your hard work and everything. You do
Absolutely.
in Easter and such. Really appreciate it.
It's quite all right.
Just, and we'll get into this during the strategic plan, but I did mention to Tyler, like, we're going to be working on monthly reports to kind of getting used to this conversation. Everyone in the room knows, there's been some turnover at the sheriff's office, but I think, as you can see with the weekly reports that Tyler's been doing, I have told them, like, those are the best that I've seen. There's quite a bit of detail and perspective in there. And so I'm looking forward to welcoming back Tyler. So as you observe and have maybe questions in the community, this isn't going to be you see Tyler and then you see him 6 months from now. He'll be back here in May and June. We're going to try to get him at the second meeting of the month. Be ready, because we want to kind of get that relationship back where you feel like our deputy is just a part of the staff as anybody else that we have, and that you feel comfortable in expressing things that you like and things you don't like and things you have questions about. So
That's great. And your reports are fantastic. I will have neighbors and people come up to me and say, what happened to Quick Trip on Thursday night? And, whatever. And be like, I don't know, but I should be getting my report on Monday. So it's really, really helpful.
Yeah,
Good to see that.
I've found, yeah, even just that little bit of information I can offer, it makes a world of difference for just some clarification. Like you said, somebody will come up and say, hey, what happened? And it sucks to be in a spot where you say, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and you don't have to go hunting for the information, right?
Yeah,
So
no, it's helpful, and I
I'm
hope that it'll be included in your report.
happy to
So,
provide it.
Yeah, thank you. All
No
right.
other questions?
No questions?
All right. Thank you so much for coming. We'll see you next month.
Absolutely, perfect.
Take care.
Hopefully I'll
Be
see you
safe.
sooner than that.
Depending on what side of the speeding ticket.
Yeah, exactly. Good terms only.
Good terms, yes, thank you. Okay, up next, we have the Public Services Space Study discussion. Mr. Mareck and Mr. Simmons.
Yeah, so this is kind of I would say, an open forum for the council, an opportunity for you to share observations on the process so far. For those that are watching, the city council had a tour of public services facilities tonight. So if there are any observations you want to share, you're welcome to do so, or any questions in advance of the space study. This was kind of designed, you had the big presentation from Martell. There's been some time to think about it. We've done our engagement tools, so if there's any observations or perspectives that you want to share in advance, or if you have questions on specific details for Andrew or myself, we're happy to answer them for you.
Questions, thoughts, comments?
Start. I would like to reiterate what Councilmember Hirschman said when we were out and about, that there's a couple of sets of numbers that would be really, really helpful when making these decisions. In particular, the estimated cost in long-term shortening of useful life on various things that are being stored outdoors or would need to be stored outdoors in the future. And then also the cost or cost savings of increased efficiency with our staff. Are we going to, by putting everybody in one place, are we going to delay having to hire another person for 2 years or something like that? Those are really important ROI numbers when we're talking to constituents about why we're spending the money we're spending. And where that investment's going. So I just wanted to reiterate, those are numbers. Thank you, Eric, for bringing those up, because those were numbers that were rolling around in my head as well, but I did not have the exact words I needed to ask the question for what those numbers were. So I appreciate you bringing that up when we were out and about, and I just wanted to second his opinion on those numbers as well.
Laura?
I think for me, the tour was what was helpful. I had shared at the end was the importance of protecting anything with hydraulics and the elements, and also just we want to provide salt service. There's a lot of maybe hidden costs that I didn't know about. That require more storage. So that's all. I don't have any questions.
So additionally, one of the things that I looked at is we have a machine shop area. I want to be sure that we think about that, proper ventilation, a safe place to do machining and fabrication. I want to be sure that as we add additional assets, additional vehicles, trailers, all of the things that we need to make the city work, that we have our own ability to do fabrication in-house. And that might get something back up and running in hours versus days or weeks waiting for repair. Larger cities typically have that capability. And yeah, we've got a spot we could do it in, but I think we're probably outgrowing that. So, that just kind of goes into let's do this right. And not only do we have the space to increase longevity and lifespan of our assets and make everyone more efficient by not going to 2 or 3 different places in the city to equip a vehicle to do its job, we have the ability to to do that, to do repairs, do improvised machining where we need to, all of those things. Just let us do more with the resources we have.
Thanks. Thanks to everybody who was part of staying late and helping us, show us through. That was really insightful. When I got there, what would be the northernmost garage door was open, so I came into the public services side through there. And that's the side where it's tight in there, but that's the side where things are really tight. So I was kind of, shimming in there, but that's a great experience, right, to see that it truly is tight. I would welcome you guys to show up there tomorrow night and the night after that. Like, this wasn't a one-time thing. This isn't a first show. I think I've gone on the record before as to saying that this year for the public services open house, we shouldn't touch a thing and be like, hey, this is why we need a new public services facility. But I think I'm going to walk that back because I think it's just too dangerous. Like if your kiddos were there running around, it's just one preschooler away from tripping and catching
Not just
a
preschoolers, but city managers.
I wasn't going to say that, but catching their forehead on a fender, and I don't think that that's what we want. But it's tight in there. So it was really insightful to see that and to see how everything is really shoehorned in there and how much stuff is outside. And we know the investment that we make into those vehicles, but did learn something like that the hydraulic lines don't like to be outside, and that's why you can't just put a piece of metal that is a plow outside during the summer and the sun beating down on them. I third what you brought up, Kayla, about the numbers and the perspective of like money saved and the kind of value add to having this equipment inside around year-round. And then finally, thank you, Brent, for taking my feedback. I asked to have the public services flyer a different color this month so that when folks get it in their newsletter, they're not like, oh, somebody at the printer must have messed up. It's the same information, because it is, but it was on a blue backdrop when it was in the, where are we at, April flyer. So thank you for that. It was really insightful and made it really clear just how stretched we are in that space. So appreciate everybody taking the time to do that. So no other comments? Let's, did you get what you needed from us on that?
Yep.
Okay, let's move on then to reviewing liquor license fees. Ms. Sons-Eiden. Yeah.
Did you know, by the way, you don't have to stay?
I like that.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
This is one of those things, I used to attend Delano's city council meetings all the time when I was a contract deputy there. I usually just like to stick around.
Well, you're scoring points. That's good.
Depending on what's going on in town, but it's nice to know.
Well, good evening, everyone. As most of the council knows, city staff reviews our fee schedule, usually in the fall, and then as part of the budget process, we bring recommended changes back to the city council for your consideration of adoption of those fee changes. In preparation for what's coming up the end of 2026, we took a look at what current peer cities are charging for the on-sale intoxicating liquor license fees, and that's on the screen there on the left-hand side of my slide that I have up currently. Just a little bit of background, the on-sale intoxicating liquor license fee in the city of Carver has not changed since 2008, when it was increased to the amount that we currently have today, the $2,525. Also, as part of Minnesota statutes, it does allow the city to include in those fees costs associated with processing applications, issuing licenses, ensuring compliance through inspections, and then providing enforcement, including public safety services, which, as you all know, those services are provided through the Carver County Sheriff's Office. Just as interesting fact, since 2008, the difference between what this cost the city versus what it does today, there was a 118% increase in those fees for the Sheriff's Office. Also then, what we are looking at is providing some information on whether or not the council would like to increase those fees going forward. And in your packet, there was a little chart there that had some percent changes, and it showed what those fees would be. I also, to this slide, added that dollar amount. So then rather than just 3%, you can see, well, how much money would that be? And that goes for the 3%, the 5%, the 10%. Also, you can decide if you want to change it for 1 year or multiple years, how you want to do that. Just to know that prior to making any adjustments to these fees, we have a legal obligation to have a public hearing, and then we also need to notify those liquor license holders that will be affected by these fee changes. And we need to mail that notice to them at least 30 days in advance. And then just a little bit of background, this would not go into effect until 2026, and they would then be paying that fee next July as they're paying the renewal fees for 2025 coming up here this summer in July. I'd be happy to answer any questions and just see what your thoughts are on this.
All right, who has thoughts?
Can you tell me again what cost went up over 100% since the last time we changed the fee?
The fees for the Carver County Sheriff's Office that we took a look at, what was the city paying in 2008 compared to what they're paying today? And then on the left there, I'll just point out too, those are our peer cities and what they are currently charging. You can see the city of Carver is the second one there, and the other peer cities are charging more than what we currently are charging for that fee.
Just a little add-on when it comes to fees. The reason why we're talking about the sheriff's office fees and processing fees is the city can't profit from this, so the fee structure has to be related to the costs to implement the program and manage the program. So in the case of on-sale liquor, that'd be the sheriff's office and administration for processing. And it's not that the sheriff's office dramatically increased their rates. They haven't. It's just we're going back to 2008. And so you're talking nearly 20 years. And so that fee is put in there just as a tool to say that you could justify an increase. However, what that amount is, or if there should be any changes, entirely up to the council.
Who else's thoughts? Kayla?
I am in favor of at least a 5% increase. I think that looking at what our peer cities are charging, we're very, very low. And with the increased cost of policing and things like that, I think it's justified. Not just policing, but just administrative costs and staffing costs and all of that as well. And we haven't increased it in almost 20 years, so it seems reasonable to do that now.
Same, just seeing how long it's been since it was increased. I could entertain between 5 and 10% increase. I do like the slide also showing each year. I don't want this to be a burden to any of the holders of liquor license, but I think, with planning ahead and anticipating the increase would be possible for them, but also it's really about, for the city, what we're spending on administrative part of it, so. And yeah, I guess there maybe isn't like a average price unless we do look at our peer cities. So I feel like it's one of these things where there isn't much information to go off of, but it just makes sense if we're coming up on 20 years and also seeing what the other peer cities need to ask for. I think we need to ask for more.
Mareck?
Yeah, so I'm surprised that it has been since 2008, and this is one of those things that we probably should have looked at a few years ago. Even at 10%, we're not even catching up to the next city until 2027. I don't think there's been a dramatic increase in administrative fees, but So I don't see the money there, but obviously if we've had 100% increase or more in our contract with the sheriff department, and this is where that some of that money goes, 5%, I could support a 10% increase for that reason, that we're so far behind in having made this adjustment. I think we'll still be behind even at 10%, but I would support 10.
So I think I'm coming from the same place as you. As we kind of peel back the onion on something like this, we really did ourselves a disservice by not raising this in 17 years. Because now it's going to be a change and probably not a welcome one. But I appreciate all the background information that you shared, and we got bills to pay, and this is costing us more to enforce sometimes the activities that go hand in hand with drinking, right? So I was thinking more of the 3%, but perhaps doing an increase, not just a one-time increase, and kind of doing it a little bit more regularly, and could probably even go up to a 5% increase. But I think it's something that I think we should try to figure out, like, where we want to be, where we need to be, and then kind of work backwards from there. If we want to be at 3,000, if we want to be at 3,500, like, I think we don't change that to be the 2026 rate. I think we try to go there incrementally, because Lord knows it's taken us 17 years to do this, but I would be in favor of increasing that as well.
So what do you need? Do you need the percentage increase?
This was going to ask Brent, is the best way to manage this, I
Yeah,
guess?
This is prescriptive on my part, but I would say if you are at 5 or below, I think you could have your process be how you would manage your regular 26 fee schedule. So we would provide the notice on a 5% increase, and they'd have their opportunity for a public hearing, current license holders. I would suggest that if you go to 10% or higher, that we create something similar to what we're doing for the space study, that we would notice the liquor license holders and then invite them in on a session where they can at least share the perspective or impacts that they might have on a 10% or greater, just so that you could have line of sight to that prior to a formal process. So I would say, if you're gonna, to summarize, 5%, we'll just make a note of that for our upcoming 26 fee schedule process, which starts in like August, September of the year. If you're gonna do 10%, then we'd probably reach out in probably June-ish to, as we're doing the formal liquor license process for this current year, that the council is considering a 10%, and they're invited to meeting X to share their thoughts. So it's scenario 1 or scenario 2. Scenario 1 being the 5%, scenario 2, 10%.
Remind me, either way this ends up, in a public hearing when we talk about the rates for what would be 2026.
Correct.
Okay. And folks would have the option to come in and opine at that point.
Right.
That takes place in December-ish, right?
Yes, I'm just suggesting that if it's 5%, that, quite often we raise a lot of our fees by 5%, and so it'd be, I would say, they'd still have their opportunity, but I don't think it calls for a special engagement process. If you're gonna do 10%, that's more, like, even though the numbers are down, after 17 years, it probably deserves a conversation. Going back, 4 or 5 years now, I guess, there was a period where the council reduced liquor license fees in relationship to COVID. There was rebates given. So in some ways, you're still kind of coming out of that. So I think some of those narratives might be out there.
So we were higher than 25?
No, but there was, the 25-25, there was a period where the governor mandated a shutdown, and so cities were allowed to rebate a prorated portion of the on-sale license fee for the amount of months that they were shut down. So I think it was maybe 6 months worth of fees.
I'd have to get the exact detail, but they did get some of their money back. That is correct.
Well, and the other strategy too is a 5% increase, but we look at this every 3 or 4 years instead of every 17 years.
Or every year, but yeah, let's. Okay, so I feel like for us to compromise to 5% wouldn't be a stretch. You said 5, you said 5 to 10, you said 5-ish, 10-ish, I said 3, I could go to 5. So why don't we, if we are in agreement, kind of decide right now on 5%?
I agree.
I would like, and again, like, that feels right to me, not, for me, that decision isn't because the process seems a little bit more straightforward. I do think, though, that there should be some kind of, maybe even a call out to the liquor license holders so that they know that they have the opportunity to opine and to share. And that can happen at the same time that that we go through all of the fees in November, or December, but I would like them to have a little bit more transparency.
So we are required to send them a notice 30 days in advance. Are you saying you want something in addition to that?
Yeah, in my mind, it would
Okay.
be letting them know, like, hey, at our December 12th meeting, we are going to be reviewing the fee schedule, and in the fee schedule this year, it says that we are proposing a 5% increase in on-sale liquor licenses. The public hearing will take place at 7 o'clock at City Hall. It's your opportunity to opine. Maybe it's just a letter like that that's sent out to all the current liquor license holders, so that this doesn't appear to be happening.
Is that different than the notice that they would receive? Because they have to receive a specific notice.
Correct.
That's when their, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when their liquor license expires.
Actually, it expires the end of June.
This
So-
is a separate.
So they'll
notice.
they'll pay 25 this June to July, and then the new fee wouldn't go into effect for a whole year from now.
Okay.
In 26, summer of 26.
What's
Okay,
the-
I'm not tracking that.
what's
Can you
the
tell me
end-
when the letter goes out?
Yeah, what's
We would have to do it, like, if we're gonna do it as part of the fee schedule process, we'd have to look at the timing and make sure that our public hearing, that they have a 30-day notice when we have to have the public hearing to discuss the increase in the liquor
But
license fee.
This fall.
So we
It's
want
not-
to,
It's not
yeah.
connected to the renewal.
correct. Sorry if I caused confusion. We would want the fee ready to go January 1, even though they wouldn't pay it until June when their license renews.
Correct, so when do these letters go out? I'm not tracking.
It would have to be,
October.
yes,
Okay.
correct, sometime this fall.
So then it would say in that letter,
Correct.
we're predicting, we're proposing,
And we're only gonna be stating the proposal for 26. We're not, this isn't a plan, this is just an
Yep.
exercise to show you.
Yep.
So, I think that notice resolves it, or? you-
yeah, yep, I'm
Okay.
fine with that. I also think that it's bugging me, I think it should be an increase of 126, just to keep with roundish numbers.
And what I have up there are rounded numbers, so I don't know where it would
Okay.
calculate out, but yeah.
But that's not a hill I'm gonna die on. Okay, that scratches my itch for making sure that the current license holders are
Right.
available or aware of. their
Correct.
opportunity to opine.
And then we always bring a draft of the entire fee schedule back to the council. This would then
Yeah.
be a part of that as well, so you'd have an opportunity to see what the number looks like.
Super, thank you.
Okay, yes.
We all good with that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7, draft a strategic plan and goal setting report, Mr. Mareck.
All right. So, as the council may remember, we held a goal-setting and strategic plan retreat a few weeks ago. And as a kind of a follow-up, we were going to review kind of the summary of those actions. So tonight is that first step. If you kind of agree with kind of these summary initiatives. Then staff would come back with some companion action plans or proposed action plans that you could again review. But this is an opportunity after some time to verify that these were your intentions, and maybe you want some wording added, or maybe some things that felt important, a week and a half ago, after some thought, don't ring true today. So I'll just run through these one at a time, and then we can have some discussion. So the first item is kind of related to kind of the downtown park or gathering space. There was quite a bit of discussion and presentation from the community development director kind of related to kind of the entrance into the historic downtown and leveraging the Miriam Junction Trail Bridge connection. And so I think there's been an emphasis in the community related to splash pad or the downtown splash pad. And so after some conversation, realizing that there's an opportunity to kind of rebrand and refocus that this is not a splash pad by name, it's a community gathering space, and trying to figure out what amenities create the optimal space for our community. So the messaging or the initiative is prioritize the landing is kind of the name. So kind of the landing of the Miriam Junction Trail, but also kind of the historic downtown, and making that into a downtown park, along with the Gateway to Carver project. So that's the kind of the reconstruction of the old County Road 40, which is parts of Old Carver Road, 4th Street East, Broadway, and Main Avenue West. As you may remember, there's some intersection improvements specifically at Broadway and Main, also Mount Hope Road and Old Carver Road. And to use those to develop kind of a new community gathering spaces and leverage that investment that Scott County is making along with Carver County to promote visitors, tourism, increasing or helping the businesses, ecotourism, and then kind of as a kind of an overarching action step to conduct a review of the site amenities in this gathering space and reintroduce that project to the community. So I'll start with initiative 1. If there's any questions or observations the council wants to make or share with the community, or changes you'd like to propose.
I can go first on this one. I think that this is great. The visuals that Aaron showed and kind of looking at, like, if you've never been to Carver before and your first glimpse of our community is coming in off of that bridge, it's not the place that I would stop to see if there's a restroom or a coffee shop or whatever. It's not pleasing to the eye. It's not welcoming. It's not what we want to put on a postcard of our city. So I love the landing. I love the project. That said, as somebody who's been around and has seen a number of different park projects and projections, I think we need to hold on this until we're ready, because I think that there are so many other things that have to be handled, and we have to figure out the space study issue before that can even be a thing. I think that if we start talking about that now and reintroduce it to the community, while I see the value in that, I think it's gonna make the issue of our space study and our need for a new public services facility convoluted and make it appear that we want a new building because we want a park there. And I would really prefer for those two issues to be separate. So I would propose that we kind of hold on that one, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, and just to kind of add on to that, you can set the timing, so within the action plan, whatever steps you want, if you wanted to say,
Okay.
I want to do this in the fall of '26, you can do that.
Okay.
This is just putting a placeholder within the plan. So you're not, and so that timing piece that you just mentioned, you could say, well, we're not going to have that conversation until, fall of '26, and then that would get Aaron started on whatever action plan steps are
Okay.
related to that.
That is helpful, and that's a lens that I didn't look at this through. So I feel a little bit better if we say, like, working on this doesn't mean in May of 2025.
Right.
Because I just don't want it to become convoluted and messy for residents as
Correct.
they're opining on one issue. Okay. Any other thoughts on number 1?
I agree with the mayor. It feels like a little bit like putting the cart before the horse, because we can't really think about planning that space until we know what's going to happen with the Public Works building.
Sorry, were you done?
Yeah, that was my
Oh,
comment.
I actually didn't have the same, conclusion. For me, would like this to be our first priority, start moving forward with it. For me, the, public, services, that building is about 4,000 square feet. It's just small compared to when we add all of it up and what we actually need. So it's like, it's just kind of a growing pain, seeing it today, yes, there's some things that we don't want to be outside, but somehow over the years, they keep coming up with solutions and we're making it by. I don't want to hold off on what I think should be the first priority until we know the better time frame of that project. To me, I'm able to separate them a little more. I realize we might not have that public perception and I might have to explain this to others often, but yeah, I'd like this to be our first priority.
This isn't necessarily
Yeah.
chronological or priority order, right? This is
Correct,
what's
so-
on the list. It could have easily have been.
I think the-
7 was the-
Okay.
The question one would be, do you want it to remain an initiative? And so, based on Mayor Johnson's comments and Councilmember Pascal, I think you have some conversation to have, but then if you say, yes, it's an initiative, we'll come up with an action plan related to it. And then we'll leave we'll probably propose based on your feedback, a schedule for that. And then the council will have to modify that based on what your priorities are, but you'll determine the priorities at a later date. Tonight, what we're wanting to get from you is this still an initiative? If it is, then we'll prepare action plans as step 2. Step 3 will be putting target dates on when you want those initiatives to be completed and started.
Okay.
So for me, then, it is absolutely still an initiative. And whatever we might want to communicate as an update on what the modeling for the landing looks like, I think it's a good idea for people that are invested in this and have seen the development of this project to know that, it's not necessarily a splash pad. It may have a water feature, but that it's still a work in progress and that the city is still moving forward to have this be that entry point from the Marion County, from the trail. So absolutely still on our list. I wouldn't want to remove that.
I would offer that this is a strictly editorial opinion, but by no later than the end next summer, that there'll be, I would suspect, a clear direction from the city council on what you're doing with public services, if anything, that will have been communicated to the community and in some steps maybe like progressed. I would agree that to do that like today would probably be confusing to most property owners and residents, like what happens when you do this or what, but I think the public services project is way ahead of this. This project is kind of dormant, and so it's just a matter of when you decide to take it out of storage and start talking about it again. But in a lot of ways, I think once public services picks up, some of this information might be critical, because I think there are some folks that have really connected in a maybe adverse way to the idea of the splash pad, and it's pretty clear that's not what this is intended to be. And so that might actually help the public services process if they somehow think that public services is paving the way for a splash pad.
Yeah, I'm okay with keeping it on here. I appreciate that framing. That was really, really helpful. I do have the strongest desire to kind of put this a little bit later on in the plan, because again, I don't want, this isn't a chicken and the egg question. It's very clear what has to happen for that even to become a reality. So it would be my strongest preference to hold on that until we have a line of sight as to what we're going to be doing with the space study in the end. Any additional thoughts on that? No?
So are you okay with having
I'm
it
okay
as an
with it,
issue?
yeah.
Okay, so it's an initiative, but more work to do on the timing and steps that need to be taken. We'll have to be maybe a little surgical on that. Okay, then initiative number 2 is pursue new methods for community engagement. So there was a lot of conversations about city app, video, maybe different platforms. Just kind of as an aside, this is, you'll think I'm a bigger nerd than I even appear to be. But over the weekend, I saw that Chaska put out a video on park dedication. Matt Podorowski kind of explained park dedication. Boy, it sounds even nerdier as I'm like talking about it.
So you're saying Matt's name, good.
But, you know, think about the task of explaining park dedication to someone who doesn't kind of live and breathe it and talk about it every day. Like, for as much as I'd like to think that we can be creative in writing and explaining it in a newsletter, it sounded different coming from like a human being and explaining how it works. It was an invitation to ask another question. And to do that, you know, it will take some investment, but I think like I would offer that's the new version of communication that residents are wanting. It's that, you know, 1-minute video on a topic, or like I would say like the old school way of doing it is the newsletter, or, you know, some kind of like government speak with a lot of acronyms trying to get them to follow, because you can say park dedication 10 times in an article and it just probably doesn't transmit. And so I think just as a kind of a commercial for this, I think this is a really good initiative to have. There's more work that we need to do as a staff, and if the council has suggestions to see what that actually means in kind of a real life application. But I think we're on the right track. But willing to take feedback from the council on that.
Thoughts, questions, feedback on that one?
I support it as an initiative, especially the city app. Those were some good discussions.
I agree. I think we have talked about, well, I've talked about at least moving to a city app since I've been on city council. I think that is meeting people where they are. I think we've modernized some of our systems, like our utilities, and being able to get a permit where we might be able to do all of that from an app where we didn't have that technology before. So I think it's the right strategy for community engagement. The other thing we talked about is the ability to send alerts out and also poll citizens from that app. And I think that would be an invaluable resource when we need it to be.
Kayla, thoughts?
I agree. I think it's a good initiative, and I support keeping it on the list.
Yeah, I love this one. Maybe just switching topics. I know that we had a community engagement metric that we were kind of stumbling on the existing strategic plan. I don't know if now's the time to talk about it, but I would support removing that, because I think we were kind of struggling to figure out what does that look like, how do we, the measurement piece especially, so.
Nope, that's great feedback. Thank you. Third initiative is develop a thoughtful, informative, inclusive, and community-centered approach to the 2050 comprehensive plan process. So as you know, that's a plan that's updated every 10 years, and it's a major tool for community and growth. And that's upcoming. The 2040 plan was, I would say, more internally focused, where the Planning Commission kind of served as that group and did a lot of work related to that plan. And I think the council had kind of found the right notes related to opening that process up and having a more community-centered approach, just because of the growth trajectory that we're on and how much of that plan is kind of lived and breathed on a daily basis. And so it'll not only be inclusive, but I would offer educational for folks to understand and be prepared for what to expect and feel maybe more a part of what's being created in the community as opposed to maybe a bystander. And I know Erin is really good at creating some creative ways to engage folks. So I think her along with the planning commission and the council could create kind of an interesting way to include people in that process.
Love it, and it's something we're gonna have to do anyway, so let's add it. Thoughts?
Yep.
Initiative number 4, refocus. And again, we'll be integrating these into your existing plan. So refocus asset and financial planning and policies based on alignment, future needs, and establish fiscal objectives. I think one of the things that you all can probably clearly see is there's plenty of needs in plenty of areas. But what can we do to create some constraints or prioritization of those goals? You can always ask for more, but I think we talked about, someone said, if everything's a priority, then nothing is. And so, what are some, standards that you want to create for doing that fiscal analysis? Again, you're not bound to them, but what are your goals related to that? How competitive do you want to be with tax base and tax impact to the average value home? I think there are plenty of metrics out there, and with the council's help, we can establish those, and then the staff can use those as a means to prepare capital planning and other planning, financial planning that is maybe more harmonious with the council's financial goals, and marrying those to the priorities that we have and needs in other departments.
Eric Hirschman, yep.
Say, is this where we talked about ensuring that as we plan for a building, that this building is gonna last be functional for 40 years? When we don't build something short-sighted that doesn't outlive its loan, does that fall into this?
That's already embedded in the existing plan, so that'll stay in there, and there's some work that Andrew will be doing related to like asset management, and building maintenance plans and planning for the future. That's already in there. This is more related to, I would say, like kind of I think we had something related to stewardship or financial stewardship, where Lynn is working on building kind of a Pure City kind of scorecard related to how we fit with tax base, franchise fees, our annual budget expenditures. But when you have that score sheet, like, well, what do you want? How do you want to use that information? So we have one, I would say, constraint model out there where we talk about increasing the tax rate by no more than 3%. There are other things that you could do related to, percent of growth versus percent of like the population or tax base related to percent of growth related to your general fund expenditures. Or you could do a bunch of different metrics, and I think establishing a couple of those might be helpful to nurture your conversation where it relates to finance, because the numbers can get, as you all know, they can get big in a hurry, and so it's easy to, I think, to say, well, this is needed in 27 and this is needed in 28 and 29. The harder part is understanding and creating a system where you can understand the financial impacts to that, and then maybe amending your plan based on what you need. So you might need something in 2027, but does it connect with what your financial goal is for that? And then having a conversation. Some years you might be willing to say, we're gonna miss our goal. And some years you might say, nope, we missed our goal for the last year. We wanna hit it this year. It's kind of what a lot of people do with their own personal finances, but we're applying that to a city standard of like, is the priority worth maybe some financial pain in one year but not the other, and how do you plan for that?
I would like to reiterate that as part of this one, I would like to see our estimates for our priority list updated. Because I know that those numbers have changed and we haven't updated them. So I would like to see that specifically.
Any other thoughts on this one? Sounds like we all want to keep it on. Or
Yeah, I'd say keep it on, and maybe, I know it already exists out there, but it's one of those things where I need to keep in front of me more, is a lot of these major projects or investments, when are we when is it paid off?
Mhm.
So,
When the debt is paid off.
Yes.
Yep, okay.
it's just a little easier to stomach, okay, yeah, we'll be doing this, but also this will be paid off by then.
Initiative number 5 is develop initiatives related to public safety to include emergency preparedness, law enforcement needs and service priorities, along with a review of staffing and compensation programs for the fire department.
Yep, I agree with this. Well, so we had a discussion that the city is growing to the point that we need to have, I think, a full-time chief. And I think this was part of that discussion.
Correct.
We've reached that point and.
Fire chief.
Fire chief. Sorry. And some of how our response times are affected by the way we're staffed today. So this one's important to me, yeah.
Yep.
Common theme here.
Initiative number 6, ongoing consideration of strategic partnerships and cooperative arrangements for services. So that'd be information technology, recreation, public safety, transportation, Southwest Prime, et cetera. That we create spaces for the city council to be strategic about that and have discussions and set priorities, not just short-term but long-term.
I have something for this, and this is similar to where I know what's out there. I know this was kind of more like reflecting on our meeting. And I think too, a lot of times Lynn presents these things in a different time of the year, like with our budget. But for me, it would be a helpful reminder to see with all these cooperative agreements, how much we spend.
Sure.
Like the one that it's WeCab or WebCab. I can picture the pen. We don't pay anything for that. Okay.
So like
that's
maybe
been that's even one where I
discontinued
need to be reminded
Sure.
that we,
Well, we can prepare that list. That's a
Yeah.
good idea.
but, like what do we pay for Chaska Parks and Rec? What do we pay for Southwest Prime?
Sure.
I assume you guys are gonna speak up if you hate these. I'm gonna move
Yep.
on. So I'm in support of that one as well.
And then the final initiative is to review commission structure and consider modifications. That also includes the Parks Advisory Group, structure of the Planning Commission, Heritage Preservation Commission, et cetera.
Yeah, I know we didn't spend a lot of time, but I really like the idea of reviewing the alternates, because sometimes it's just kind of hard to know how much they're needed, and they give a lot of time.
And as we look at that, if we could look at any quorum issues we have or we would have by increasing the numbers on the body, because that's for me with alternates, that's my biggest concern, because I've served on boards where it's difficult to meet a quorum. And I don't think we've had that problem, but have we not had that problem because we only have 5 people?
Correct.
Or have we not had that problem because everybody shows up every time?
Yep.
Those are 2 different questions.
Nope, that's a great comment, Councilmember Pascal, where we could just look at minutes from past years and see where we would have had an issue. Because I would offer just that this could be a good move for Planning Commission, but might not be a good move for the Heritage Preservation Commission, just because of the attendance levels. And so that's a very good thing or a point, and we can study that and get back to you on that.
To just finally have the HPC fully staffed for the first time of it. Okay.
So those are the initiatives. So our next step as a leadership team would be to come back with action plans related to these 7 initiatives, incorporate that into your existing strategic plan that runs from 23 to 26, then give you an opportunity to review those, amend, change as you feel needed, and then we'll come back with a schedule related to that. So targets for starting and ending, so they coincide with other initiatives and things that you want to keep segregated from discussion as we kind of move forward.
Great. Thank you. All right. I think that is it for this work session. Can I get a motion motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilmember Pershman,
Second,
second by Councilmember Pasco.
take your pick.
Sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. See you soon.